I recall in 2013, then as Deputy Minister, we secured funding from Agence France Développement with technical assistance from the World Bank to conduct what you call an environmental and social impact assessment study. Normally, when you are engaged in such huge projects, it has some environmental impact, it has an impact on the social lives of the people. So that's the first step. We successfully secured funding for that. And then, unfortunately, we lost office. The Pwalugu Dam has three main components: the hydro dam itself, the irrigation component, and the solar component. So the dam is supposed to generate about 60 megawatts of hydro power, 50 megawatts of solar power, and irrigate about 117,000 hectares of land. Basically, it's supposed to help Ghana become a net exporter of tomatoes. Today, if you go to the market, just 4 pieces of tomato sells for about 20 cedi. Rice, very expensive. And the project was supposed to ensure that we reduce rice imports by about 16%. And so it's a project that has been dear to all of us. But unfortunately, President Akufo-Addo cut the short in November 2019, even before coming to Parliament for approval. And when he cut the short, he stated that it will be funded on GOG budget. So when the 2020 budget was presented in November, we checked for the allocated amount for the Pwalugu Dam, and it was zero. There was no allocation. That's when we started raising the red flags. Then in February, they brought an EPC agreement, which is engineer, procure, and construct, or what you call a turnkey project. When we perused the agreement, we realized that it was a loan facility disguised just like the Sino-Hydro facility that Dr. Baumia campaigned for, which today we all have become aware that is a loan agreement and not a barter agreement. We also raised issues about the pricing and the costing, because we thought that it was too expensive. At that time, the MPP majority had their numbers. And so in 2020, they approved that agreement. The president himself gave a timeline of 48 months. So clearly in 4 years, the project was supposed to be completed and commissioned. Even if you discount the 2019, then you're talking of 2020, 21, 22, 24, or 23. So by the end of 2023, we should have seen the project completed. Every year, VRA appeared before the Mines and Energy Committee. We raised this issue. And the challenge was that funding was a major problem. So if you read the parliamentary answers and reports, we kept talking about the slow pace of the Pwalugu Dam. But what heightened it is a recent exposé at the Public Accounts hearing, where the Bank of Ghana admitted that they've indeed paid $11.949 million to the contractor, Power China International. Now, the minority side asked why the Bank of Ghana made that payment without verification. The Bank of Ghana's answer was simple, that they were only a bank. If you have your money with a bank and you instruct the bank to make payments, the bank has no business asking you as a client why you want to make that payment. Fortunately, the auditors were there. And then they asked the auditors, how come they did not visit the site to verify? But let me provide this clarity. What auditors do is to first inspect your books and to issue an opinion. And so if you were to tell auditors a Land Cruiser, and they ask you where is the documentation for the Land Cruiser, provide any evidence, they don't need to go looking for the Land Cruiser. It means that you've not procured that Land Cruiser. So I think that the auditors were within their rights to raise that issue and to state that that payment ought not to have been made. And then the 12 million is quite a huge amount. So the minority leader then asked that we visit the site, and he facilitated the visit. So let me thank the Honorable Acheforson. And we went with the media, Metro TV, and all the other TV stations. Our first point of call was Kurugu, where we visited the chief, and you heard the chief himself. The chief really lamented, and was explicit, that once a son of the soil, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who hails from the northeast, came and promised them that the dam would, they had absolute faith in their own son, and that if anybody could let them down, they never believed that the vice president would do that. So the chief delegated 2 of his sub-chiefs who joined us, and then we drove down to the construction site itself. It takes you about 5 minutes from the chief's palace or from the village to the dam site. And when we got there, we were shocked at what we saw. Bare land, no construction. And so one would have even thought that normally the contractor would try and put up some campsites in order to continue. When the Chinese went there, they rather went to the chief, and because the chief was so passionate about the project, they evacuated the nurses from the nurses' quarters and gave them the nurses' quarters, hoping that within some months they will construct the campsite. So the evidence there clearly showed that there was no construction, there was no fiscal work. What we saw were some blocks that were molded. And when we counted the blocks, there were 217 blocks. We counted the pieces. And then 2 trips of sand and 2 trips of chipping, stones. So we asked what they were doing with the stones, and they said that the contractor had abandoned site, and when he was going, there was a certain man in the village, one Alhaji Amadu. The contractor sold the blocks, sold the chippings, and sold the sand to this man, took the money, and left Ghana. Our checks indicate that the contractor has left Ghana after receiving the $12 million. So clearly, in contracting, normally when payment is liable and accountable. Moreover, we've briefed our flag bearer, and our position is simple. On assumption of office, we shall constitute a thorough audit into all payments. Because yesterday I was on a sister station, and some consultants confirmed that they've also received some payments aside the 12 million. So beyond the 12 million, it does appear that some additional payments have been made. And Professor Miller himself confirmed that. Let's be specific.
Who's Professor Miller?
He was a pro-VC for the UDS. He's now a consultant, and said he was engaged to undertake some services and was paid. And that was aside this 12 million paid directly to the contractor. I'm also hearing that some other consultants have been paid. But the bottom line is that the 4-year period is elapsed. We are now in 2024, May, and I can confirm to you that not even a teacup of concrete, a teacup of mortar is being poured on that site. Rather, the few blocks that were molded have been auctioned on sole sourcing basis to one individual.
Blocks?
Yeah, they selected one, Alhaji Amadu. That's the name of the man who bought the block. Alhaji Amadu.
So
he sold the blocks.
The Chinese contractor should go through competitive tender to sell the blocks.
Yeah, when you are auctioning. So they sold. And it's really a very sorrowful state. But the other issue about the dam was to prevent the annual flooding.
Yes.
Because of the annual flooding, up there, the dam was supposed to hold that water. So, unfortunately, this is the state. And I heard Dr. Bawumia last week say that he's committed to completing the dam. Andy, you have 5 months to leave office.
It says when he is voted.
And when he's voted again.
Yes.
But why would he be voted again?